I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I bear witness that Ali and the Imrans from his sons are the proofs of Allah. I bear witness that the Mahdi and the Mahdis are proofs of Allah. Upon this I shall live, upon this I shall die, and upon this I shall be resurrected again.
We're joined now in the studio with our brother Matthew. Thank you so much for joining us, Matthew.
Hi.
Hi there.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So Matthew, we're really excited to go over your story and your experiences in your journey towards the truth and towards pledging your allegiance to Aba Al-Sadiq, from him his peace, and joining the call of Imam Mahdi. Let's hear a little bit about your religious background and what you used to believe in before joining this call.
I was christened a Catholic. I had a Catholic upbringing, and up until my late teens, early adulthood, you know, I followed the Catholic faith and went to church, went to mass. And, you know, in my early adulthood, I lost that. And, you know, I went away from God, and I went into my life without him. And, you know, quite a few years ago, probably about 10 years ago, I felt a need to try and, you know, there was something missing in my life. So I looked everywhere, really, in all different areas, non-dualistic religions, read books by the Dalai Lama, or, you know, all sorts of things. And I came across a book, a course that I did over a year, which was a book called A Course in Miracles. And the end of that book was said, right, now it's the beginning, you know, now your mind's reset to kind of look back out there. And that's when I found the YouTube videos from you guys. And, you know, just immediately they like resonated with me. And I, without needing any convincing, realized that, you know, I was looking at the truth and hearing the truth. And, you know, from then, for somebody who's, you know, doesn't know anything, who's uneducated in all areas, I mean, you know, it's been a learning process, learning about myself and learning about the truth, really, from a completely different viewpoint. And it's changed my life, really. I'm not over, my journey's not over by any means, but it's definitely in a better place than what I was, that's for sure. So thank you very much.
That's a beautiful answer. You said you lost God and then you felt like something is missing that motivated you to explore and find something, and then you did find him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was definitely missing. You know, yeah. I can't believe that I didn't realize it for so long. So, you know, I'm a bit embarrassed about that, if I'm honest. But I suppose it's everybody learns in different ways, don't they? So. For
sure, absolutely. Life is a journey. It's a test, and it's a learning ground, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, and it's better late than never, I would say, when it comes to finding God and finding what the truth is. And speaking of the truth, you know, you were brought up in a Catholic background. I mean, and you read some books and you tried educating yourself. What is it that you, like, how did you come across our faith? What was it that you were looking for on the internet that made you stumble across the call of the Qa'im?
Well, I didn't, there wasn't something that made me. The previous book that I read, this Course in Miracles, which really is about emptying illusions from your mind and, you know, giving yourself the space to really re-engage with, you know, the truth, if you like. At the end of it, I just spent some time asking for atonement and, you know, to find out, like, what was next. I asked God, and that's when, you know, without me being able to ignore the answer, I came across you guys, because I didn't just see one of your videos and pick up on that. You know, I saw it again and again and did what I always did, which was ignore things and think that I myself could create a better reality than what God was presenting to me. And, you know, it needed to be shoved in my face quite a few times. And what always, you know, astounds me is that the videos that I saw, you know, the order that I found them in, actually was quite particular to where my thoughts were at that time, you know, like almost like, you know, divine answering type thing.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's always, yeah. So, but I still don't learn easily, and I still took my time to realise, you know, what was sat in front of me, and you know, I was asking for something, and there it was. So, yeah, and really, you know, that was kind of fermented. I first met yourself, Wakar, James, and Alexandra, you know, and that was an amazing experience, to be honest.
We really enjoyed that meeting. And you have mentioned something quite wonderful here, where you talked about how it was like your thought processes and the frequency that you were on, the videos were answering your questions through your journey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're not the first one to say that.
Yeah, yeah, and they're not always they weren't always the things that I wanted to hear, maybe, but maybe they were what I needed to hear, you know. So, and that's why, yeah, and that's why it took some time for me to accept those truths.
So you said that you used to be Catholic, but then something just made you not able to continue being Catholic, and that's when you said you, as you put it, you lost God. What was it about the religion that just wasn't working for you? What was that point where you were saying to yourself, this isn't it for me?
Well, it wasn't an answer to life that I was experiencing. You know, it didn't answer the question. You know, I would experience this reality, you know, whatever this is, I would experience this. And, you know, the faith and, you know, what I was experiencing through my faith with the religion that I was, you know, part of, wasn't really in sync with that. It didn't answer it. So, you know, therefore it just wasn't, you know, it wasn't a sustainable faith really for me, or it wasn't a sustainable religion, because it wasn't able to deal with the day-to-day things I was coming across. I read something through you guys, you know, one of the books of yours that I've read, and I you know, I don't really want to quote things because I'm not very good at that. My memory's not brilliant, but it was, you know, it was about, you know, about the fact that these faiths, they're historic really in their view, because they've been crystallized at a point, you know, and it's not going forward. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the religion doesn't live without a living messenger. It has to have a living messenger to be alive, to be adaptable to the time we're living in. Yeah, so in fact, lots of the problems that I had, you know, I wasn't able to eloquently, you know, verbalize them within my own mind. It was only upon, you know, reading something that was expanding my consciousness, and specifically, you know, documents from your religion, that actually pointed out to me that, you know, these were the problems that I was having. And that's happened in other areas of my life. I've read other books, you know, like nothing to do with religion, where I've suddenly thought, oh my goodness me, that is why that has happened in my life, you know, why my thinking is like this. But these things have answered questions for me and allowed me to move forward. That's, you know, moving forward. Very well put.
It makes you feel good. Yeah.
Yes, because it starts to make sense. The bigger picture starts to make sense, and you know you're going towards a goal which you have reached now, which is where you were trying to find some, I guess, resolution, some sort of answer to the confusion in the world.
I don't really know what I was looking for. I just knew it wasn't what I had, and what I had was nothing, because all I had was illusion. You know, I was looking outward on the world and trying to make sense of that. But actually, you know, since I've started to realize about the truth, is I've looked inward, and you know, that's what's made the difference in my life, is not the trying to make sense out there, but trying to make sure that, you know, I've not identified with things that simply aren't real.
Understood.
Which has caused me lots of problems in the past.
So, touching on a bit of your history, we know that you've had a bit of experience working in the military.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. How did that change your perspective, or did it change your perspective on God and on the world, on humanity? What is it that you took from that experience?
Oh, well, actually, it's, it didn't take things. It made me realise that, I was wrong in my thinking, because no matter where you go in the world, people are the same. It's just God's people. They want the best for their family and they want to be happy. It doesn't matter what country you're in or any kind of background. So for me, what I noticed, what the being in the army did was, I think the army and all armed forces would try to make you feel separate and different from other people. But actually what I noticed was, it's more about inclusion, how we're all the same, regardless of the things that are different. At heart, we are the same. And, that's where I didn't really fit in and I didn't really get on very well with it. So.
All right, let's move on to our next question that we had for you. Now, this one is an interesting one. We've actually had a lovely conversation before when we met up, and you mentioned how you actually ran into someone in your life who mentioned something, a certain knowledge that you then later on read in the Gospel, The Goal of the Wise, that was written by Aba Sadiq. And that was a strange connection for you, which sort of validated further the fact that you believed that this was the truth. Can you comment on that experience?
Well, that experience still, I've not worked through that in my own mind, really. And there's things that definitely happened to me over the last period of time that I've still not fully processed. And, that is actually probably one of the biggest ones, where I met somebody who told me about you guys a long time ago. And, I don't have a massive recollection of that. I have, it's like I have a memory of it. And, when I said, how would I get involved with you? And this person said to me that you would call me. And actually years later, when you did call me, it brought back, and that's that association. So but it's definitely an act of God, there's no doubt about that.
Would you consider it a synchronicity, like a divine synchronicity that happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I just think the difference is that God's synchronicity is quite subtle, so you can miss it,
That's right.
And the horrible synchronicity, the stuff that's not very good for you, is really loud and blaring, and you notice it instantly. I unfortunately listen to the loudest first of all, and I'm trying now to listen to the subtle, because that's really what matters, and that's what makes me feel better. So.
That's quite wise, actually, and that's a good takeaway as well for people listening, that God's synchronicities are quite subtle and we should be looking for them and listening out for them. You've read The Goal of the Wise as well. Tell us how that was for you. What did you take from it? What did you find most resonated with you? And what did you find most challenging to accept?
Well, so first of all, having read the book, I thought, wow, these are people I can talk about anything to. They're not going to be fazed by anything I've got to say. So it immediately made me feel comfortable and I relaxed, to a certain thing. To be fair, I actually find reading something and then rereading it and it's saying the same thing I find challenging, because I, always skip, I get excited and I run away with myself when I'm reading. But, the book did bring me peace. Also, I read The Calf, and I'm halfway through the book on modelism, and all of these books, they're like, if I could be honest with you, they like adding new code to you. They're adding new bits and they're opening up and allowing you to have new experiences. And The Goal of the Wise, I definitely think it's worth a read, but only if you're open-minded, because I think that's the only time it could help you. And I could see that people who weren't open-minded would read it and look at all the things that are difficult to digest within that book. But it's not really, I think that the things that are easy to take, they're the things that, they're ephemeral. They're not really worth it. They're the things that get thrown at you first of all. It's the stuff afterwards that you've got to go through to get to that actually matter in your life. So the book comes down to one of those for me, is that, you've got to go through the fact that it is, some of the things are off the wall a little bit, I might say. And, some of them resonate as total truth. But the whole thing in its concept and the reading doesn't at any point feel that you're reading something that isn't right. I've never had that in any of the dealings, in any of the things I've read, however difficult they are to read, and some of them aren't difficult to read, some of them really answer questions. I can't remember which book is, what Allah means and to be needed. That's quite beautiful, and to think that, and it helps me ask for help, because to know that that's what God wants. And there was a number of other things, and I'd love to remember all the things that have benefited me through the books, but I can't, because yet again, that to me is a little bit like crystallizing things and standing still, because there's other things out there that I've still got to go and find. So I don't want to dwell too much on what's happened, because that's still not the best. It's not the best it can be. So
yeah, it's an ever evolving, ever developing truth and reality that we're living in right now. And you yourself have actually had different experiences, not just here in England, but also in different parts of the world due to your military life and so on and so forth. Here's an interesting question, Matthew. Now, you've had some experience in the religion of Christianity, you've come across Islam, perhaps you've also come across some, let's say, not so mainstream schools of thought or belief. Perhaps we could call them societies or secret societies. You've had a run-in with that kind of thing in your life. Can you comment on that a little bit, shed some light on that for us?
Well, people in secret societies, they're wrong. I can't say any more about it. It's not the truth. Everything comes within God. So that comes down to getting things that you can get now that you think are of value, but actually, they're not of value, because they're only in this reality, really. And it's just a short circuit. And, you've got to go through that, and you've got to look for the bigger picture, really, which is what God wants you to do. And I don't believe that that's what he wants you to do, because I've not read that in any of the in the New Testament or in the Quran. And I think one of the things I was going to ask you a question, actually, because I would not want to get this wrong, but it's the meaning of Islam. Is that not somebody who follows God or something like that?
It is submission to God. That's right. Submission to God through the caliph that God has appointed on earth.
Yeah. So in some regards, I mean, one of the things that I found quite nice about Islam is that actually, submission to God is, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to submit to the person, or or to the being, or to God, who has totality of everything? You presume that you could know better than that, and that's maybe something that I suffer from. So I like that angle to it, and I've not found anything that would detract anybody from wanting to look into that more in any of the things I've read. And I would only say that anybody who would say so was simply listening to people who would have something to lose if everybody thought the same way. So,
that's true. So when you say that God's true religion actually benefits you in totality, in all aspects of life and death, rather than simply in this world, do you mean that in comparison to these so-called societies that actually push people towards worldly gain alone? Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, no, that's what I do mean, because surely that's part of it, isn't it? When you read through any kind of scriptures, I mean, it's about, you've got to go through some pain within this reality. You've got to go through some learning. You've got to remember really the truth. It's like a test from what I can understand. And, if you wanted to short circuit that, because within this reality, you could do some stuff that, or have some gains, then, that's not really what, I've never felt, I don't know why, but it's never felt comfortable for me. So,
of course.
Yeah. And Matthew, I do have something to add, which is that, Jesus did say, don't stop seeking until you find, and those who find, they will be disturbed. But when they are disturbed, they will be in awe, and after they are in awe, they will reign over the awe. And it seems like, from what I understand, you've gone through a lot in life in terms of looking for God. You've looked into secret societies, or have learned about secret societies. And I'm pretty sure, as you said, it can only be an open-minded person that can read the Goal of the Wise, can read and listen to the teachings of Aba Al-Sadiq, and say that, hey, this is clear. He has clear answers. He has clear understanding of Scripture and of past teachings that make sense of what we are upon today. Now, you know, secret societies, they teach about, you know, a one world government, a one world order, and their understanding of what is right and wrong. From what you learn and from what you understand, how does that contrast to God's rule and God's divine just state, and in contrast to the state that these people are advocating for?
Well, I mean, so I just want to make sure I get the answer to your question correct here, because it's quite a, you know, a big question. But so I'll have to break that down. In first, I mean, it's my understanding that the divine just state, you know, as far as I was concerned and I've read, was that whether you be Jewish, Christian, or you follow Islam, you know, then you would be held to the rules of your religion, because man only has to do what God says.
Absolutely.
You know, not another man can tell you what to do. And, you know, God's laws within any of those three books, religion, or, you know, like, however, is quite clear about how you treat people. And,
Exactly.
you know, to me, that's like logical. So even if you weren't of a religious or faith-based person, why wouldn't you look at things from a logical point of view? And logic says to me that, you know, the trouble with man is always corrupted by power or money or anything that's within this reality. It naturally corrupts man.
Yes.
So, you know, the person who's uncorruptible, what's uncorruptible is God. So why would you listen to somebody who the moment gets something or as a benefit to telling you what to do, and then it's not for your benefit that they're going to get you to do it.
Exactly.
For sure.
And also, you know, you yourself, it says it in books, you can read it, you can go and read it, but, you know, the truth resonates. Do you know what I mean? You don't...
Yeah,
You
no,
know
for
it deep
sure.
down. We know deep down what is true.
You do know it deep down. All you've got to do is stop looking at the things that aren't real, the ephemeral things. You know, once you stop thinking, is my car better than their car, and actually, you know, look within and read something and think about that, then, you know, the truth will make itself known to you in a subtle way, but, you know, in a beautiful, subtle way. And you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not like this person who's all sorted. My mind, you know, it's not somewhere you want to be all the time. But, you know, there's moments when, you know, I've read your literature, I've read stuff, and, you know, it can take you to such a beautiful place. But in that place is none of that nonsense.
You're totally right about one thing. Political systems, governments, secret societies, Freemasonry, whatever you want to call it, they're all taking people towards a state of selfishness, where unfortunately that's not God's way. God's creed is selflessness, and that's really the stark difference between that and a state under God's rule.
What's happening in the world, right, and what should be happening. You know, what's happening in the world isn't right. You know, people are hungry, people are at war, we spend massive amounts of our income on weapons, you know, and to me, it's madness. I can't believe it. Politicians are corrupt. They say they're going to do something when they get elected, and they don't do that.
Exactly.
But yet we put up with this. It's almost like a will for ignorance. We accept that that's how it works. I mean, that's what but it's not how it works. You know, and on the other hand, you guys have come up with a system that logically wouldn't have that involved in it, because people wouldn't have gain from control, because we'd be letting God have control. So why wouldn't we do that?
Of course. No, absolutely right.
No, for sure. And brother, I want to ask one question also, is that because you did talk about, you know, some things resonating with you when you found the call. What was that one thing that made you feel for certain that this is the truth? What resonated with you the most from the teachings of Aba Al-Sadiq, whether it was from his lecture or his book or anything of the sort?
Oh, well, I'm afraid I can't give you one thing, because that's not how life works in total to me. It wasn't one thing. It was, in actual fact,
Several things, probably.
Well, I think that's the thing with life. There isn't any one answer. there's a number of answers. And, you know, those answers, those little small things, you know, are difficult to notice. They're easy to unnotice because they're not super exciting in the first instance. But it's once you add all those together that they become exceptionally powerful. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to think, well, actually, you know, this is a journey. There isn't an A to B, you know, and you've got to try and thread those little things together. And before you know it, you turn around and you look back and you think, oh, my goodness me, look how far I am. You know, it's where I was when I started. This is miles away. And there wasn't like there's not a switch that you can flick to make a change. The change is internal, and each little thing that you add to yourself, what it does is it throws out a bit of rubbish, you know, something that somebody else has told you. So you keep dragging these little things in, putting them inside you, and throw out the rubbish, and eventually your good bits will outweigh the rubbish bits, and then you can maybe start to make some wiser choices about who you listen to and what you believe in. You know,
that's true. And Aba Al-Sadiq himself had described to us years ago, Alia and Matthew, that, you know, if a person wants to succeed in this path, what that individual needs to do is empty his container, empty your cup of all that which you had believed in, basically be open-minded.
Absolutely, yeah.
Empty your cup of all that which you thought you knew and that which you think that you know, and be ready to receive what the Imam or what the Messenger of God in each time is going to give you.
Oh, completely. I mean, I can't add to that, can I?
So let me ask you a question here. Now that you've watched the sermons of Aba Al-Sadiq, from him his peace, you've read his book, how would you describe your experience in knowing him and learning about him? How would you describe him to others?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, the description would be a personal thing, and therefore would lose some power. I mean, you just need to do what you said, which is ask God about him. You know, that's what you just ask God about him. Ask God about him, read his books, and don't expect to flick a switch, you know, and make your mind up at a point that isn't in 5 minutes, at a point that isn't in 10 minutes, you know, and then go and speak to somebody, go and speak to one of you guys. You know, just go and talk to somebody, go and be within their presence, and then allow those things to accumulate, you know. And then once you had a bit of distance, you know, between where you made that decision and then when you're gonna, you know, value that decision upon what you found out, just make sure there's some distance between there. Because you can't expect to undo all this nonsense in 5 minutes, because this nonsense has been well prepared to be this nonsense, you know? And everything that's put in you has been put in for a long time. You just can't take that out in 5 minutes. So, you know, my only advice to anybody is to do your own research and find your own things, but just not make snap decisions. Imagine somebody who would read The Goal of the Wise, who would listen to the videos, would even, you know, come and meet you, would not feel that there was something going on that, you know, needed further investigation, and also something going on that felt nice, you know. And I you know, we've only met a few times, but you know, when I've come back from meeting you, you know, that's been such a great journey back. Even on the way to you has been a great journey. You know, most of my worries, they go, you know, and I come back, and I bounce off of that for days afterwards.
I'm so
you know,
glad to hear that. No, it was such a nice experience. It really was.
It was. So I just think everybody's just got to, anybody who's got any questions, I'm sure that if they were to ask them of you and ask the questions that you told me to ask, that they would find answers. But just not great big neon light answers to start with. I don't think it works like. Maybe for some people it does. Maybe there's a flick of the switch. But it hasn't been like that for me. It's been, you know, a longer process. But then I feel that that's quite well, you know, it's more worthwhile for me. So because it's more ingrained, you know, I have a more of an understanding of that, and therefore I maybe value it more. I don't know. So
that's a really good answer. I guess we'll probably ask you the final question now, which is, based on your own experience and your own life, what advice or words of encouragement or inspiration would you want to give someone who is on a journey towards the truth?
Well, I think it's got to be that you don't know anything. I don't know if that's great advice, but to realise that you don't actually know anything would be surely the start point of looking. It certainly was for me, because I thought I knew what was going on, but I blatantly didn't. And it's only since I realised that I needed to look at something in a different way that things have changed for me. So I think people just got to be open-minded and give things time, and also seek the advice of the right people, really.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Matthew. We really enjoyed this conversation with you today. I'm sure the viewers are going to learn so much from your words of advice and inspiration, and we loved seeing you today here in the studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you.